2.7. Now let's get my team to get their 2.7s. Then my other teams to get their team. Morality.
Tonight, we celebrate Coraon's birthday and welcome two very special guests, and we'll discuss the book Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah, and finish up with Star Trek Deep Space Nine. All this coming up right now on The Writer Brothers! And welcome to a very special episode of The Writer Brothers. I am, of course, your host, Petey York, joined, as always, by the lovely Mr. Coraon, Witch in Residence. It's his birthday. The even more lovely H. Marie, and the considerably less lovely Mr. Pollo Zapatos. But, of course, we are honored and very humbled to welcome you, sir, Mr. Kamran Pasha. Thank you for taking the time to appear on our little channel. It really means the world to us tonight.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and the honor is mine. And I'm here to honor our friend Coraon and wish him a very happy birthday, a very happy solo return. And
thank
I don't
you.
know, something within the weekend tradition that is a appropriate birthday wish, but please teach that to us if there is, and we'll give it to you.
You know what? There's nothing specific. That all being said, there is a little bit of a tradition involving a speech around these things, and I happen to have something prepared. If you guys wouldn't mind, a little bit of a birthday speech.
Yeah, go right ahead, and then we'll address fan mail and go from there.
Okay, so there we go. If you wouldn't mind, my friend, putting that up.
It doesn't sound like the audio's coming through.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me see why I boomered that. Here we go. Let me just see why it decided to not do this in just 1 second.
All right.
Share audio stream. There it is. Reconnecting. Okay, don't be showing that again. Got it. My dear Dominions and Dementites, Jedi and cosplayers, fans, geeks, nerds, YouTubers, mods, and Trekkers. Today is my 111th birthday. Alas, 111 years is far too short a time to live among such excellent and admirable people. I don't know half of you half as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve. I have things to do. I've put this off for far too long. I regret to announce this is the end of my speech. I'm going now. I bid you all a very fond evening. Goodbye.
And he's gone. Oh well. No, when you put that much effort into a special birthday message, you definitely want to use it more than once. All right, real quick before we get into the discussion.
I feel like I've heard these words before.
Right?
I feel like you were inspired somehow.
Possibly.
Yeah, I could have sworn I've had this conversation. All right, real quick. Nemesis of Eden writes in, happy birthday, Coraon. Hope your day has been amazing. It's going to be great. Probably referring to the show. Skogliotin says, holy smokes, what a lineup. Woo. Arende, who made our book recommendation that we're going to discuss, says, hello. I see an awesome little Black Panther. I used to have one like that. Nemesis of Eden again says, hell, Coraon, Petey, Pollo Zapatos, Cameron, and H. Marie. Hope you're all having an amazing day. We are. You're here, and we've got Kamran Pasha on, and of course, from there, everyone's reacting to the speech. So, Arende, who you can see in the comments, came up with this, or had this suggestion for a while now, and we finally got to it, and that is, of course, the book Illusions, Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. Cameron, have you by chance read this one at all?
I've not. I've heard of it, but I've actually not read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regardless of anyone's personal faith or beliefs, this is definitely one to absolutely check out. I was thoroughly impressed with just, it wasn't boring at all, and it was a quick 2 hour and 50-minute listen, and it's just hits on a lot of really good points, lots of really good quotes. Basically just speaking from the perspective of a Messiah in the modern age and how that encounter might go and why they're not so interested in fulfilling their destiny to be Messiah. And it all makes a lot of sense. But John, you said you were very excited about it. So why don't you say a couple of things real quick and then we'll see if Cameron has anything.
Shout out to Belinda real quick. Just noticed she dropped in right as we were running through the chat. Welcome. Really appreciate you.
Actually, before we even get into that, we do have our second guest has arrived. Everybody, this is a huge deal. Please join us in welcoming Mr. Overlord DVD, Dictor Van Doomcock. Sir, welcome to our small little program. Thank you so much for coming on. We do appreciate it, and we are honored to have you as well.
Well, when your witch in residence has a birthday, you're supposed to do something about it. Doesn't matter if it's Tuesday, it's his birthday. You're supposed to do something about it. If you don't, it's bad. Bad for witches everywhere. So, hail Coraon, witch in residence, and happy birthday, my friend.
Oh, thank you. With friends like you, how could I not have a wonderful party? I really appreciate it. Both everybody here and in the chat, you guys all coming together. It means a lot. And I'm really touched that you guys all decided that little old me is worth the time and attention.
Well, absolutely, my friend. And congratulations on 1,000 subscribers. And
thank you.
It's just a festive time all around.
Yeah, it's been a pretty awesome week. I don't know if you heard Doomcock, but the current arch enemy, Wizards of the Coast, caved and has officially thrown up the white surrender flag and has given up the entire enterprise for fear of the ramifications of having to deal with the community. And they're now on their knees begging for mercy. So
Wow, well, I don't know about showing them any mercy, but congratulations.
Thank you.
I've learned that when assholes are down, you keep them down. But
that's kind of where the community at large is at this point. Where but I looked at it this way: this is the first IP that fandom has beaten back the corporate horror.
Yeah.
On. This is the start. This is where it begins.
Yes.
Right?
I love it. No, I love it. It's fantastic. I don't know. I just now we just need to save Star Trek and
basically,
Star Wars.
Basically, if it has Star in it, it's time to go rescue it.
Yes, or Doctor Who, but I don't know what
the
to
Doctor
think,
does need a doctor. I agree.
Yeah,
But they never got to Starman from the 80s. They haven't gotten there yet.
Oh yeah,
No.
let's look at Starman. Yeah.
They haven't touched that yet.
they haven't. Well, it's
Cameron,
too late for that.
I think
Bowie's gone, and Starman. It's just.
Is someone like David Bowie actually ever gone? Is that actually possible?
No, I think he just went home.
Yeah, they're interdimensional beings. They transition.
That's
Yeah,
true.
absolutely.
He's on the moon with
Yes.
the Major Tom thing on his, chest, and he's hanging
there you
out.
go.
Yeah.
I miss Bowie. He was great.
Oh,
But
man.
Russell T. Davis, basically decrying woke writing and woke writers and saying it's rubbish. But on the other hand, then somebody else published something that he was talking about praising Kurtzman or something. I haven't looked at it because it would make me too angry. So I don't know if this is true or not. Some things will just make me too angry. Twitter these days, look, Picard season 3. Okay. That's all you have to say to me. To slowly I turn, step by step, inch by inch. It's the old shtick. It's like, I don't know. I fucking feel like they're surrounded by pod people. Otherwise sensible people. Let's give them another chance. Yeah.
Well,
Right.
I guess my whole piece on first for the Doctor, I guess this is what I'm going to say. Yeah, he probably did do something like that, but here's the truth. The truth is, this is the latest piece that's come out of the Doctor Who team of late, and they've started to realize that wokeness is not actually popular.
Right.
It's not actually putting butts in seats. And because of that...
There aren't enough butts in the woke crowd.
Well,
Nope.
that's it, right? But
everybody else is just tired from work, and then these people are like, I'm gonna go do overtime making everybody's life hell.
Well, but
Yeah.
this is the point, right? Like now that they're starting to realize the inherent problem, it's rotating back, and now that it's popular, everyone's decrying woke. But the truth of the matter is, we know who the trendsetters are. We know who the people that started no, look, we're not against, relative diversity. What we're really against is bad writing. And, we've come forward and said that, and they're now getting the hint. So with any luck, what that's going to mean is in the very near future, Cameron is going to have a lot of work because he's been proven right. And, he will become immensely popular in Hollywood, or at least hopefully the Kamran Pasha method, which he's now professionally teaching. So, if you're not following him on Patreon, do that because he's amazing. And of course, if you wish to be a part of the amazing vanguard that is the war to save pop culture, you go sub to Doomcock. So really what you want to do is sub here, sub to Doomcock, sub of course to me because I'd really appreciate it, and subscribe to Cameron's Patreon and be completely in the loop, completely aware of the world going on around you, and be part of the beginning of the changing of the tide.
Yes. Well said. Well, it's like been a long beginning because I've been fighting this battle since 2017.
I don't mean to set you off, but you could argue that it has been a long road getting from there to
here. Absolutely.
The worst Star Trek theme ever. Oh,
I don't know. By comparison, I'd say it's pretty good these days, but that's also, it's really more of a love-hate kind of thing for me. It really is. The graphics look cool, and you could have done an instrumental with it, but oh man, it's cringe factor 9. Absolutely.
I know. I think the Voyager theme is maybe the best Star Trek theme, period.
Okay.
Jerry Goldsmith, it just suggested so much majesty and grandeur. It brought a tear to my eye, and then I saw the first episode, and those tears dried up pretty fucking fast. Boy, that was a bad show. I'm sorry.
Well, they were trying to go back to exploring the galaxy,
right?
And they were beginning to, the challenge that at that stage that they were getting to, sort of post Deep Space Nine, was that society had pretty much caught up to Gene Roddenberry's vision, right? He pretty much caught up to the progressive social vision that he had, humanity as equals and all this stuff. And so then they're like, well, we'll make the captain a woman. But we've already had strong women for multiple shows now, right? So so what are we going to do here, right? And so, we got a Native American dude, right? And so, they kind of,
but dude,
that was when Star Trek was like, where do we go? Now we kind of gotten towards a better culture.
Dude, as a writer, if you're gonna do a show about exploration, the thing you don't do is have a Klingon running through the cornfields of fucking Iowa, and then immediately on the first episode, the first thing you do is go straight to the Klingon Empire. That's brilliant. Oh, geez, that's exploration right there. And then you have the Vulcans everywhere to boldly go where every Vulcan has gone before. Is a shit premise for a show. So it was just terrible.
Okay, but getting back to Voyager, here's what I'm going to say, and I think this is an important point. I think the problem Voyager had was they had already the toughest, hardest badass they possibly could have had in Kira Nerys. You weren't going to be able to put a captain in play that was going to top that for most badass woman available on the market. Yeah. Right?
Well, do it with somebody that doesn't sound like, what's her name? Mr. Orland, Katharine Hepburn, it's like
time for my coffee and pack of cigarettes to start the day.
I have to say, I gave Voyager a long chance, right? And there were things I enjoyed in the show, but there, when the final finale actually came, it was really sort of anticlimactic. They get back to Earth and like, okay, fade to black. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. After all these years,
well, not even that.
Not wormhole, and we're back at Earth. And
exactly. How many times in Voyager did we have so many different opportunities to get the ship back home? And instead we do it with convoluted time travel and the Borg, which by that point are just, nothing adversaries at that point because they're just easy to kick. They kick their butts every other week. I think Voyager's biggest problem was they should have kept with the DS9 formula, which, by the way, we're in the middle of a rewatch on DS9. And
the greatest of the Star Treks, I worked with Ira Steven Behr as my first showrunner on Twilight Zone. Still the greatest showrunner I've ever worked with.
That's awesome. And the thing is, the formula worked because it was a hybrid of episodic bad guy of the week along with serialized storytelling. And I think that's what Voyager's biggest shortfall was the fact that we just hit the magic reset button at the end of each week. All of a sudden our shortage of torpedoes, we forgot that was a thing because, and the ship repairs itself magically by the end of each episode, so we get a beauty shot. And it's like...
and crew regenerates itself somehow.
Right, yeah. And then that's really what I think. If they had stuck to the DS9 formula, it probably could have been a much better show, because it does have its moments. I'm probably not going to watch it again, personally, but...
No, but I mean, look, if you want to know what Voyager was supposed to be, look at Battlestar Galactica. That's what it was.
Absolutely.
That's what it was. I mean, we've got like Cylons that look like people infiltrating, the Battlestar, and so there's all this tension in the crew. Well, that was the Maquis and the Federation. That's what it was supposed to be. And it was supposed to be they're isolated from, resupply and repair. And so every year it was supposed to get more and more desperate and more rationing and darker. And it was supposed to be a heroic tale of true survival against terrible odds. And no, instead it was another fucking Howard Johnson in space, where everybody's, clean and everything's brightly lighted. And the Marquis schmucky, they're swell. We all get along. And fuck this. It was just like exactly the same old shit.
Yeah, it was like, sure, they were blowing us up 2 years ago, but now they're kind of cool, right? Like,
yeah.
Well, just keep in mind, Battlestar Galactica, it's Ron Moore who's a genius behind that. There's a lot of stuff that he worked with Ira before, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that he wasn't able to do in the past that he decided to put into Galactica. And I've recently, I'm over visiting my sister and my brother-in-law, and so I had never watched his most recent show. I'd actually never watched it, For All Mankind. And I don't know what anyone thinks of it. I'm most of the way through the first season, and I'm blown away. This is a great show. I mean, I
It's-
was shocked by how good the show is, right? Because as someone
one of
who's a
my
fan
faves.
one of the, I'm a huge fan of the Apollo program. First Man is among my favorite movies, which is a movie about Neil Armstrong that came out recently, and and the recreation of what this alternative history of what would have happened in these sequence of events that happened with the space program, and the drama and the conflict. It's really remarkable. Of course, I shouldn't be surprised. It's Ron Moore.
Yeah. Well, all I can say to that is if you really like season 1, Cameron, you're in for a treat with seasons 2 and 3.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
I won't spoil it for you.
Well,
but I'm just saying you're in for a real treat.
I heard in season 2 some things happen. Oh, sorry, I ruined it. Anyway, real quick, we'll catch up on some fan mails here. Galinda writes in, Voyager was almost as episodic as MASH. Well, the difference is I'm actually enjoying MASH right now. Arende writes in, how many shuttles appeared after being destroyed, LOL? Yeah, exactly.
You want a fun number? I actually sat down at one point and did a Voyager kill count to just see how many crew members they lost versus how many crew members per complement they mentioned throughout the show. They lost their entire crew 5 times over the end of the 3rd season.
So if you want to be a red shirt, you really want to be a red shirt on that show.
Oh, dude, I'm willing.
They
to
are
bet
all
they had-
red shirts.
Yeah, like I'm willing to bet they
USS
had
red
some sort
shirt.
of- well, no, it's like the USS cloning facility. Like they've got like Star Wars' Camino in the basement or something, and
I'm
they're just
pretty sure
pumping
it's the
out
USS
ensigns.
Matrix.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like President Kennedy said, "Ich bin ein red shirt." That's we're all red shirts. It's
yeah.
By the final episode, it should be like 3 guys like desperately trying to fly the ship. Nobody else left.
Okay, the problem is, guys, this is actually sounding like a show I want to watch. Like, this sounds like the Star Trek we should put out there.
You
It
got
should
like
be
a Star
called
Trek
Star-
spacecraft
Like-
with 3 crewmen trying to survive.
Or an
That's right.
Orville spin-off. Like, this is good stuff, right? I'm serious. Like
should be
yeah, an
Star
Orville
Trek
spin-off
Next
that's
Earth.
based on Voyager, where they're so desperate to try to get home, and the ship is basically held together with 3 guys and duct tape and a little bit of love.
Nah, I got a better idea. There's only 3 crewmen left. One of them is Ensign Lister, one of them is Ensign Rimmer, and the other one is an evolved cat. It's cold outside. There's no kind of atmosphere. I'm all alone, more or less.
You gotta have
Yes.
Look,
And you know, Q shows up every once in a while, right? But
Yeah, no, we finally have mentioned Red Dwarf on this show. Or I think we mentioned
There we
it
go.
before, but no, we
We've
actually got
hit-
it.
Great
we've hit
fun
peak
show.
geek. Yeah.
Absolutely. So a little bit about what we do here. We're just a quick little 2-hour block. We've sort of become, since Doomcock, you moved your show to Wednesday, we're kind of the unofficial pop culture breakdown pregame show. So we just do little kind of bullet points because we do also an audio podcast. That's why we keep it to 2 hours. And this week we got a book recommendation from one of our community members, Arende, who says we got a bit off topic from the book, but I'm thinking, the book was about sharing ideas. I think we're still on topic in a way. And so I think the discussion's been fantastic so far. And then, well, Doomcock, I'll try to give you some positive perspective regarding Kurtzman Trek. And I mean, if you agree or disagree, it's fine.
I already
dangerous
disagree.
waters. You got a shark in here, and you're
I'm just gonna share it. If if we get a Doomcock rant to Chris in your first run here, okay. But yeah, I'm not necessarily gonna try and piss you off. But if it does, well,
you might get angry enough to rip off that helmet and throw it at you.
Yeah, he'll probably make it too. I'm sure he could throw it across state lines, no problem.
Either that, or he's gonna have me summon Harvey and like send him over for a tentacly involved visit. So
Yes, let's have Harvey come and say hi. Let's have Harvey come out and fucking play, because I'm sorry. I have it's something that has zero quality. There's not been a single moment of that shit that has been anything less than deplorable. And I'm not just talking about Star Trek. I'm talking about just as entertainment, unfit for human consumption. It's brain dead. It's ugly. It's stupid. It's anti everything that Roddenberry stood for. It's disgusting. So I don't know what to say, but
well,
yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say that there's two. Well, the 2 points don't even have to do with the product itself, because I mean, I know that you've got your mindset on that, but I'm just going to point out a couple of the major results that mean a lot to me. So first of all, of course, I mean, you were inspired enough to start your own channel, and you've also, man, this is going to sound like ass kissing, but it's just the straightforward truth, man. You've also inspired a lot of other people to start their own channels and their own efforts to combat this. You've also inspired me to continue to try and push my own stories. Behind H. Marie is actually a copy of my book, Galaxia. And I think that in of itself is a big positive. But more importantly for this show specifically, my younger brother, John Pollo Zapatos, sitting over there, he is now watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine for the first time. He would not have had any interest of this had we not covered Strange New Worlds when it aired. And so I think in time, you'll absolutely be vindicated in that people probably just aren't going to watch the new Trek stuff because I mean, Strange New Worlds, I personally found had some good steps in the right direction. But ultimately, it's the Nick Jr. version of the original series. It's not even close to what we expect.
It's the Hallmark movie version.
It's a good one too.
Yeah, really. It's like, you've got, that asshole
visuals
with the pompadour, grilling in his fucking, quarters. He's the, galloping gourmet. I don't know what the fuck his problem is. It's a terrible, terrible fucking show.
But he was the celibate knight.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say this. Every sequel to the original Trek should be doing their best to stand on the shoulders of the giants. Okay? Like, they should be looking at DC Fontana or Ira Stephen Bear and saying, okay, these were the best things they did. We need to break down internally what they did best and then grab that formula and build on it. Instead of standing on the shoulders of the giants, though, Kurtzman decided to try to be underneath the giants and push up. What he doesn't realize, though, is giants are heavy and he's not a very big man.
Yeah, he was trying to establish a new foundation for this world, which was unnecessary because the foundation was solid.
Exactly. Right. So he tried to underpin an existing underpinnings, and it just doesn't work. Look, I was even a little bit hesitant on Axanar, even though I do think it was a fantastic premise to take like one specific note that they brought up in original Trek and expand it out into like a little mini series or a movie. Because there are things that we don't necessarily want to know. We want to have that mystery. We want to be able to build it in our own headcanon. What exactly happened in some of these things that were mentioned, right? We don't need to see it happen. We need to dream about it. And I think that's something that, for specifically DC Fontana did fantastically, is she specifically would mention casual things that she had never intention of ever touching because she wanted the fans to dream about them. She wanted the fans to ask those questions of each other and for other people to come up with like beta canon as to what happened there. Right. And filling those out, fleshing those out is not a great plan. I mean, that to me is the number one problem with the prequel trilogy in Star Wars, even though I did kind of enjoy the prequel trilogy.
I enjoy it more now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too.
Oh no, yeah. Well, that's the other thing that Kurtzman did. Kurtzman made original Trek look freaking amazing. It's the same thing Kennedy did. Kennedy made the prequel trilogy look like the greatest thing ever in comparison.
We had it so good and we didn't realize.
Right. And Voyager and Enterprise are both like infinitely superior to Kurtzman Trek. I mean, I was just talking about their premise. I mean, it's a genial little show, Enterprise, and nothing to write home about, but nothing to hate, exactly. but the premise was so radically and fundamentally flawed in every possible way that you can't have a show about exploration where it's already explored and they're just kind of ferrying around and Vulcans are tut-tutting at them and
It's just like, God almighty. It should have been, we don't know what the fuck is out there. And the first time they encounter alien life, it could have been a big, big deal. I mean, but they just set up the wrong thing in that horrible Star Trek First Contact movie. And by then it was, and then it was just totally ruined. I mean, they really screwed it up.
I feel like if they were going to do Enterprise, it should have been named something. The ship should have not been named Enterprise. The main guy on it should have actually been the guy who invented warp drive.
Zefram Cochrane.
Cochrane should have been the guy in charge of the ship. And the minute he meets another species, like every major moron on Earth is suddenly trying to convince him, no, you need to get out of there, and we need to get diplomats there. Because you are not a diplomat. We do not want you being our representative out there in the stars. We want, these 15 guys that are all professional diplomats to be out there.
Right.
And Kurtzman telling them to go, well, then they need to invent a warp drive if they want to get out here. Because it's mine and I decide what the hell happens. And screw you all. Which would have been hilarious, and it would have been a great, internal argument. Because I feel like the great thing about humanity is nobody gets to mess with humanity but us. We are our own little brother, right? And that would have been a fantastic way to have it, would be, we're going out there, we're making mistakes, we're doing that stuff. If you want to do that, sure. But have it so that we're fighting internally just as much until something happens out there, and then all of humanity comes together to deal with that problem.
So that's brilliant idea.
Not to mention, you have real life events that said that's what we're gonna do. So it's cheating as a springboard.
Yes, but the best writers cheat.
That's what I'm saying. That's the fastest way to draw the connection between the future that you're painting in your story and how it worked. Is you run that Kennedy speech in your opening sequence each time, where he's saying if an alien species showed up, we'd band together and lose the idea of borders. And so use that as your springboard into the full story that becomes Enterprise, like you just said. Yeah. And that I feel is what Kurtzman isn't, and all the modern, it really starts to feel modern, because if I think about it, the Star Wars prequels were derided and degraded just as much as these new sequels are. And they both deserve it. If you look at the prequels, they are not congruent. If you watch them in a row, they don't make much sense. But if you watch these other sequels, same thing. Escalatory powers don't make sense. Powers in general don't make sense. It really feels like all of these franchises that we love, even if you go to video games, Call of Duty, they started that trend of doing Modern Warfare and Activision, and then they switched to Black Ops and the other one, Treyarch. And so you had one doing modern, future, escalating future, and then you had one making it all make sense, and then they didn't do that. And I think it's because nobody's actually writing this shit out. Nobody's taking the time to draw the timeline.
I think it's really
and then to tomorrow, and then
it's because they don't care. They just don't care.
But also,
I actually think it's because none of them.
I really feel like it's the industry isn't buying the full story. They're
Maybe.
Here, you're going to make one, and if it breaks, you better come up with something completely different, or we don't trust you. When I really think it should be something more along the lines of make one, and then blow that up, and then we'll buy that whole franchise.
Yeah,
and then
I actually think
work it in.
I actually think the reason why they don't have a proper timeline is because they do not understand the Kamran Pasha method of writing. So
correct, which is where you're going, right? So actually, I want to raise that. So all this is fascinating. So I want to throw something that just came to me while I was listening to everyone sharing these fascinating perspectives. I have an idea for a Star Trek show that I would do. That just came to me right now.
Oh wow! Okay,
and so
everybody, ladies and gentlemen,
I didn't care enough to watch the Kurtzman track. I got enough from Doomcock and everyone else what it was about. Wasn't for me, right? So I don't know if they did any of this, but it is something that I would like to explore, because in studying because I did a Google search in looking at sort of the alternative history of Earth of what happened, right? After the development of the warp drive and all that, and the development of the Federation of Planets, right? And all this. And so, there is in those 3 centuries, there's some major changes in human culture, that allow a lot of, the philosophy of Gene Roddenberry to take effect, right? But I'm always very much a belief that even as we have sort of these ideals and values that are spread, there's people that will resist that. It's just part of being human. I've never believed that all of humanity is going to buy into this. I don't think they ever will, right? And so in what I'd like to explore, because I was doing a research on whatever happened to my fellow Muslims in the Star Trek world, right? You've got Dr. Bashir shows up. Dr. Bashir shows up in Deep Space Nine. We don't really talk much about his background, right? He's an Arab guy, might be Muslim. We just never hear about it, right? And there's a couple of billion of us today. So do we all just vanish, right? I mean, so what happened to us, right? So I went and read some of the interesting, because it's appeared in some of the novels and some of the other things that there were explanations that a lot of people, not just Muslims, a lot of people that weren't into a lot of the sort of secular ideals of the United Federation of Planets, right? The materialist worldview, because certainly, that not what Roddenberry created, but certainly in Star Trek, I think, in the Next Generation, there was from Berman and Braga, they were very much a materialist, almost anti-religion view. They did episodes on that, right? Mm-hmm. And so, what happened to those people? And according to some of this, which may or may not be canonical, but some of the stuff that appeared in the various books over the last several decades, suggested that a substantial portion of humanity wasn't actually on board with a lot of the cultural choices that were being made under the United Federation of Planets. And they left. They took the warp technology and said, see y'all later, suckers. Same for us, right? And they left. And they sort of left human history, and it evolved, and we don't really know what happened to them. So it's kind of like what happened with the Romulans and the Vulcans. That right. Romulans had a philosophy that was pre-Vulcan rationalism, that didn't abide by this new philosophy and culture, and left. And they created a whole planet and a culture that was more traditional Vulcan, which was more martial, right? So I would love, and again, I don't know if Kurtzman did it. I'm sure I would do a better version of whatever he tried to do it with it, because we had hints of this with Khan being, the super engineered human beings from prehistory or Federation history. But I'm not interested in the superhumans. I'm not interested in the engineered humans. I'm interested in what happens if, in one of these shows, we go to some quadrant and we discover this is where all the different humans who didn't abide by the philosophy of the Federation settled. And now they've gotten new technology and they're coming for the Federation. They're like, because human conflict, I don't think, is over. And once they've got the technology to challenge the Federation and its ideas, I'd be interested to see that kind of dynamic. I mean, maybe nobody else will, but I think the idea of a war between the various factions of humans, because the Prime Directive doesn't apply to them, right? So what do you do?
Well,
we'll explore a show like that. It would be very Deep Space Nine kind of exploration of these two versions of humanity that evolve separately.
Yeah, so I really like this idea, and it's fascinating that you got that inspiration, because I actually almost made a Twitter.
It came to me.
Yeah, I almost made a Twitter post today, basically taunting the current showrunners of Trek, saying, tell you, why don't you give me a chance to write a show? I almost put it out there, but I was like, I don't have an idea. But I think we have an idea now. And so, I like this a lot. Yeah, I think it's absolutely worth. Oh, there absolutely is, and I think that's something that
you go to a world where there's evangelical Christians, right? You go to a world where there's traditional Muslims. You go to a world where there's Confucian Chinese who aren't on board with some of this stuff, right? And then those guys have their conflicts, and then they're like, well, these stupid sucker idealistic, Federation suckers, let's go take them on, right? That's interesting.
So you have religions versus the Federation. Yeah, this could definitely go places.
You have a really cool idea. If you, for an opener, I would add that it was part of the Federation. They built them a ship, and each one had a habitable pod or some form of device that shot them to this solar system of planets that were all within the habitable zone. And so they all get their whole religion alone on that planet. And so as they come together, they form their own federation of religions, and then that's versus the Federation of Planets. That'd be so sick.
Yeah, some sort of universal human brotherhood kind of idea versus the Federation, and have them do things like decide, no, we found slightly primitive species and uplifted them to be client civilizations to our civilization, just almost an antithesis to the Federation.
Antithesis of the Prime Directive, because they don't need to follow the Prime Directive. They could be out there and creating an empire, right? Because that's what human beings do. Do you think Genghis Khan types are just Khan himself? It's in our DNA. What are those guys going to do in this, idealized world?
Yeah, we all have the capability.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with it is something I was thinking about with Battlestar Galactica, which was with the Cylons.
Yep.
At this point, they're just being dicks. Like they have this little ostensive excuse. Well, but if we let them go, then they're going to come back and they're going to want vengeance. Their sons are going to want vengeance. Yeah, maybe in about 5,000 or 10,000 years. But, I think they had it right that you could set the crew of the Galactica down with their advanced technology on a planet, and then it's going to take a long fucking time before they are actually a technological civilization that could achieve anything. I mean, beyond survival. So the idea of a spin-off civilization, actually rising to the point where they could challenge the Federation is quite a reach.
We have historical precedents.
It's a bear hole. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, hold on. Hear me out.
Historical precedents the Pope sanctified piracy.
Mm-hmm.
So in that same essence, it's not necessarily can they get to a chance to attack the Empire or attack the Federation with their own technology. It's more that their technology allows them to then start leeching everybody else's technology and repainting it with the Pope's colors of their planet.
Well, here's another possibility. In the Trek universe, it's very clear that there were progenitor species that existed well before humanity ever did. Perhaps they run into sufficient technology on some of these worlds that while they may not be able to understand all of it, they're able to reverse engineer a significant enough amount of it to be able to gain a technological advantage to uplift their civilization to Federation standards, which explains the base technology difference between the two. One is starting from, what Earth could put together after World War III. The other one is starting with, we have a huge tech base of really cool stuff. We just don't understand how to use 3/4 of it, but we know enough to hey, replicators are a thing that we have that the Federation doesn't yet.
Yeah, so I think I've actually got a pretty good idea on how another way that you could go about explaining it. So, kind of similar to build off of Cameron's idea, I'm thinking in Voyager, one of the better aspects of the show was the Borg cooperative. Mm-hmm. I thought that whole concept was really cool. Now, if we consider that for a second, that they have all this different knowledge of all the different religions, and the cooperative was, as far as we know, kind of trying to unassimilate more Borg, maybe you could build something out of that where during the link some ideological switch happens and suddenly everyone's like, oh, we need to be Muslim now, or we need to be, Judeo, and then that starts to splinter, but they already have technology that's obviously formidable against the Federation, so then we can get our holy religious war going, but with Borg technology. Oh man, that just raised the stakes a bit, I think.
Element of, which is something that Star Trek was somewhat uncomfortable with, although they played with it at times. They played with it. And I think Roddenberry played with it more because he was much more free with his own baby than the others felt, right? But, the very idea of, is there a benefit? Is there a benefit to religious paradigm, to mystical paradigm, right? Star Wars explores that, the Force, right? That, there are these Jedi and Sith have evolved to a place where the Force is almost, they have midichlorians. There's a scientific basis for it to some degree, right? But the idea that, if you had a planet that had followed the Tao, right? That actually evolved with technology plus the mystical teachings of the Tao, like Taoist warriors, right? Would they have an advantage over people in the Federation that have a very materialist worldview? I think they would.
Well, no, because Taoists wouldn't be at war.
Well, but again, that there were people that came out of the Chinese tradition that were warlike, that came out of that tradition, they were able to use aspects of the yin and yang to their benefit, right? So that's the idea: is you take what you need out of it. The yin and yang contains the Jedi and the Sith within it, right? The symbol.
Right. Yeah.
I'm suggesting that there are within our traditions things that I always wondered, can you really remove that from the human condition? Star Trek got around it by giving that to Han and the super engineered humans, right? But I'm going to suggest that the martial spirit of humanity, the aggressive conquest side, is in our DNA. And if civilization doesn't allow it to be expressed because it's so civilized, it will find another place. That's my suggestion.
Well, I think that's true, but I think that a show focused on war is not really in the spirit of Roddenberry, because I mean, you know, it was all about exploration, and two, I mean, the worst problem is that you're vilifying a religion, because if you're gonna make them the bad guys against the Federation, any way you cut it,
they're not necessarily the villains. But if
they're attacking a free, democratic, idealistic, then where
well, then maybe that should be the
way to really put a good spin
unless
on
they
that.
are pointing out the corruption within that, beneath the idealism. Right?
Well, but then we're corrupting again something. I mean, that's going Kurtzman's route, because Kurtzman does basically have a whole lot of rot inside the Federation, and that's not what Roddenberry wanted to have.
Well, and that's where I think you make a valid point, and I think the way to do that would be we have them clash for a second, and there's a war, and then maybe the overall point of the story is trying to expose the elements that created the war in the first place, have it turn out that it was totally contrived by shadow agencies in both sides, and then obviously we try to make it towards peace, and that's where we come back to the Roddenberry idealism of, okay, we need to unite, we need to unify, we need to find our common ground again. So yeah, no, I see what you're saying and see your concern, but I think we could definitely flip it around though. But
guys, this is the writer's room that Star Trek needs right here. And with that in mind, guys, with that in mind, though, I will say this. Doomcock, my friend, I do understand that your time is limited on the surface world.
I do want to mention, okay, so you're both going to bounce?
It's shortly, yes, but I'll let my brother Doomcock take
so I do want to say, Mr. Overlord DVD, thank you so much. From my perspective, our time is the most precious resource we have, and so it means the world to me that you would spend some of yours with us tonight, and I really hope you come back more often, because, I mean, I don't always agree with you, and I don't expect you to always agree with me, but we're about restoring respect into discourse, and I think at the end of the day, sometimes that just means we agree to disagree, and it's been wonderful having you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's important, and I certainly have respect for everybody here, and
thank you.
It was a lot of fun. These things, I'm very passionate about it. I don't think there's any passion whatsoever in the Kurtzman writing room. I doubt they're
not having these debates.
Hell no.
Ever. No. Not even about story values and stuff, which is what this is really like a debate about. Well, then what are the story values? What are the characters? And how
do we stay true to Roddenberry while trying
right, which is a very tricky thing, because Roddenberry had a pretty rigid structure, but I think it worked, and I think that we owe it to him to work within those limits, which were horribly strict in Next Generation.
They were more so in Next Generation. There was a lot more flexibility in the original show.
Exactly.
There was that great episode where they come to the Roman planet and it's actually about Jesus, right?
Right.
He had more openness to those things that Berman didn't. But I will say this, my friend Overlord, before you leave. God willing, I make this show. I look forward to you tearing me apart on your show and then saying this.
I want to collab on this, by the way. I want to make sure it's clear.
If you get to make the show, I want to come and write on it. So
yeah, and then you can be the voice saying I will not accept this corruption of Roddenberry's thing, and we'll have that voice in the room.
Exactly, like on Next Generation, they had the one guy that was the logic Nazi that was always like shooting down their ideas and being a pain, because it's like, but what about this? And it's like, damn it! Don't mention that.
Hey man, as far as I'm concerned, this would be the greatest writer's room Star Trek could ever have.
Oh, they'd be lucky to have us at all. Well, I'll straight up say it.
But it's going to be led by H. Marie, who has said nothing this whole time, which really, you in charge.
Well,
that's right.
DC, are there any projects, plans, schemes for world domination that you have boiling that you want to plug before you return to the darkness from whence you came?
Nothing in particular. I'm just trying to develop, some new things. I mean, YouTube doesn't reward innovation at all.
No, of course not.
It punishes it heavily. But I still will have a yen to do some different things. So,
Well, if you're interested in doing some classic movies, you are always welcome on my channel, sir. You are always welcome to join us. And at some point, I would like to actually have Harvey on my channel to do a movie review with me, because I think that would be an awful lot of fun.
Sounds good, man. I'll talk to him about it.
All right. Doomcock, thank you again.
Thank you, brother.
Peace and long life,
Good
sir.
to see you guys. Good to see you, Cameron. Love you, man. Take care.
Take care, bro. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Great
There we
party
go.
so far, Coraon. This is fantastic.
Well,
it's great to see people energized to debate Star Trek, right? It was wonderful, and I'm gonna now play with more, because Doomcock made some important points. How do you try this stuff while being true? And I would think about, like, how did Ira had to endure a lot of. We talked about it in the writers' room. He had to endure a lot of garbage when Deep Space Nine came out. People said it violates everything that Roddenberry stood for. This is a darker world, the Dominion War, all those things. And I still think it's the greatest for the modern Star Trek.
Oh, it's the greatest Star Trek, in my opinion. I mean, so from my perspective, so I'm at the point now, and this is probably why I can tolerate the Kurtzman stuff, is I'm at the point where I see Star Trek as a multiverse anthology, in that we, the fans, get to decide what is Star Trek to us. And so if you like some of the new stuff, if you're a diehard 735 Club member, it shouldn't matter, because at the end of the day, Roddenberry would expect us all to treat each other with a sense of decorum and respect. And I think, Doomcock did a pretty good job of that with the fact that, yeah, he's passionate, he knows he's passionate, and he knows he's bullheaded, but he's not going to hate any of us for disagreeing. And that's what we're about here.
Are good. Our intentions are not to piss on this property and show how we are greater than Gene Roddenberry. Did I ever mention to you guys that time that I actually developed a Roddenberry project and worked with the Roddenberry company? Did I share that with you?
No. I'm curious about this one.
Yeah. No, this was a project that I wish had gone. I was actually approached by Roddenberry company, by Trevor, who runs the company in behalf of the Roddenberry estate now, right? And they approached me to develop one of the classic Roddenberry projects that he had done. Do you guys remember the horror movie that he did in the 70s?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was a movie. It was a movie that Roddenberry did. He was hoping that it was a backdoor pilot into the TV series. It's a TV movie called Spectre, and that never ran as a series. And it was essentially the X-Files before the X-Files. Yeah. But it's X-Files set in the world of demonic possession. This is Gene Roddenberry in the 1970s, post Star Trek. And he made a television pilot, a movie about essentially a Mulder and Scully type two characters who are exploring a case of demonic possession. One thinks it's all just nonsense and mental illness and schizophrenia and other stuff, and there's nothing supernatural happening with this possessed person, and the other who does believe there's something happening, and it turns out there really is. There is a demonic force that's actually there, and they have to confront it. And so in making that movie that ended up getting released, it didn't get him turned the series they wanted to make. He was going to make the series about this believer and unbeliever working together, but looking at paranormal themes with spirituality. And so you're like, when people say to me, Gene Roddenberry was an atheist, I'm like, I know that's not true.
Yeah.
You know why I know that's not true? Because I read Gene Roddenberry's notes. What they gave me to develop, they wanted to take what Roddenberry had done in the 70s and make the series he never got to make, right? So they gave me access to his original handwritten notes that I read. I was like, I can't believe I'm being given this, right? I read these things and his personally typed on his old typewriter notes and all that stuff.
You still have them?
I probably do. I don't know that I could share them. I think they're the property of the Roddenberry company, right? But I have them, or at least I have copies of them that were sent to me, PDFs and things. And then I was blown away because in the 70s, because the movie came out like 77, I think.
Yeah.
The decade after Star Trek had hit and really made Roddenberry an international name, I'm reading his notes, and he's saying the final frontier is not space. In his notes, he's writing the final frontier is God.
Yeah.
It's spirituality. It's faith. This is Gene Roddenberry. Whoever's talking, he's an atheist. He didn't believe in God. I was like, bullshit, right? I read his own material, and he said the quest into space that I started in Star Trek is looking beyond the veils of reality, and the ultimate veil of reality is what lies beyond death, what lies beyond this dimension, what lies beyond things that we can understand. And he wanted to do the series exploring it. And so I'm going through all these notes and hit the questions he's asking about the nature of God, angels and demons, and his absolute love and fascination for this, and his belief, at least from the records that I saw, that this is a real phenomenon, that there are, just like he believed there were aliens on other planets, there are beings from other realities that we would define as angels, demons, genies, whatever you want to call them, right? But he said this is a real phenomenon, and people are going to become hip to it over time. And he said that in the 70s. So ultimately, I pitched the show. We went around town. We actually got a pretty, a successful producer. We made a bunch of movies with George Clooney, and and we got together with him and the Roddenberry company, and everyone said no. And then 3 years later, guess what they greenlight? That show on CBS,
X-Files.
Evil. Yeah. No, not even X-Files. Evil. You know that show that's still on the CBS show? Evil. Yeah. It's exactly what we pitched. I was literally like, somebody got a hold of my memo, because it's the believing one. It's a female scientist. It's just the same thing, and it's the believer versus the unbeliever. It was a lot of the storylines were the ones we were pitching about what we were going to do. I was like, well, that's a coincidence, right? So it's like my show. God bless them. But these two guys were the people who created the show. It's a married couple. They're very successful on CBS, and they were very hip to the TV network's politics, and so they got to do that version of the show. They just didn't link it to Roddenberry, right? But it's literally the show that I pitched around town, and everyone said no to, and it was heartbreaking, but
really disappointing.
That's the industry,
because I like that show a lot.
Yeah.
I was going to say it sounds a lot like Evil. I was going to be like, have you seen that?
Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
So,
that sucks.
I got a bitter email from the Roddenberry exec when Evil got greenlit, and I was like, "There's nothing we do, man."
Yeah. So real quick, and I'm sorry, guys. I know you guys are used to me reading fan mails when we're going, but it looks like if we get more than 4 people in here, it's just going to get a little crowded. So, but real quick, I'm trying to pick out ones. Arende writes in, "The final frontier is God." Q alluded to this on the very last episode of TNG. Arende, we're totally on topic with your book suggestion here. It's just we probably won't get too in depth with it tonight, but I wanted to
I won't be able to participate much. I have to leave in a minute. So yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to say too, and I mean to go along with what you're saying, and especially in my walk, in my personal faith, in my journey, I've come to realize that all the reasonable people have no problem at least acknowledging faith and acknowledging that they don't know all the answers and that science doesn't disprove spirituality by any measure.
All science can do is analyze things that work within its method,
right? That
are falsifiable, that are replicable. There's phenomena in the universe that cannot be replicated. It just happens once. Yep. And it's real.
Well, I'd even go so far as to say that if we take a look at some of the really cutting edge science that is coming out over the last 10 years, if you were to look at it and then look at what spiritualists have been saying for years about certain phenomenon, we find that they line up almost identically. Absolutely. And we start to realize that the difference between what we say is science today and what we say is spirituality today is how we choose to express it in terms of metaphor. That really they're trying to all explain the same stuff, just from slightly different perspectives.
And it's what he did in Deep Space Nine with the prophets.
Exactly.
Right? In the temple, the celestial temple, right? The wormhole, right? Ira explored these non-linear beings that don't exist in our frame of time. A lot of us would have called them angels before, right?
Yeah.
It's a different word, right? So, and that's why I think Roddenberry would have, had Star Trek continued, he would have continued to explore this. So I remember as a teenager watching some of the Next Generation, and they did that really offensive episode where, they went to that one planet they leave it all Prime Directive. These are such advanced people because they don't believe in God, and then the people see them materialize or whatever, and then they suddenly get inspired by this bizarre thing they can't explain to start believing in things, and they're like, we failed them. We've now given them the falsehood of religion, right? Because they experienced something that was beyond their thing. I was like, what a stupid episode, right?
Weird episode to point
that
to.
Roddenberry would have been insulted by it.
It's a weird episode to point to because there was that other episode where like supposedly Picard literally meets God, and then even Futurama did it better where Bender meets God, and it's a lot closer to the book that we read, which is like you always could ask for whatever you wanted, you just never actually asked.
Yeah.
You just said you were asking.
Well,
And then he kicks Bender home, and it saves the whole event. And Bender goes, "Man, what a waste of time." Like, that was better than what TNG did when Picard meets God, and God just tells them, "No, none of this matters."
Yeah.
And then Picard goes, "Yes, it does." And then that's the whole interaction. It's like,
yeah, but that's the nihilism of those two gentlemen, right? And Ira's
Yeah.
there didn't have that nihilism. I never actually explored Ira's personal religious beliefs. I never asked him about it, but he was clearly open to the world being more. I mean, work in the Twilight Zone, right? He was clearly open to the world being more than the five senses, and he wanted to explore it.
Oh, dude, I feel like Ira is one of those people that if you could ever convince him to sit down at a campfire and just let him go,
Oh yeah,
the things that you would learn about the life of the universe and everything would fill an entire book.
to this day, the greatest showrunner I have ever worked with. I'm now going on 22 years in this town. The first showrunner when I was a staff writer. To this day, I've never met anyone more competent, more intelligent, and I've never met anyone who's a better manager of people than Ira Steven Behr. It blows me away. All these other people could learn so much from him.
Well, I would definitely say you've certainly been influenced in your writing, sir. Everything I've ever read from yours has a very deep understanding of the universe and how it all comes together. I jokingly say that, the universe has chosen to show me a thing or two, and I try to explain it as best I can, and don't always do a good job, but you are certainly a more eloquent explainer of the things that I think we've both learned, and I really appreciate your writing, and I think a lot more people need to get the opportunity to do so as well.
It means a lot to me. Thank you. And I want to reveal to you, I'm actually a simulacrum. H. Marie is actually the one running me. She's basically the one. I'm voicing her thoughts. So I'm the simulacrum that's being used as like a puppet.
Oh yeah, no, we're all H. Marie's puppets. Like I'm sure there's like, it's like a Stargate SG-1. She's like some sort of like Queen Gould that's just got little creatures burrowed into our brains and controlling us at this point.
Okay. All right, my friends. Look, I need to start heading out. What I will do is, if I may, I'm just going to pitch out my Patreon. I'll throw a link to it in the
Absolutely.
chat.
Way ahead of you.
Yeah, you already did it. Excellent.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know if you're yet a member yet, but Coraon definitely is, and he's been very active on it, and it means a lot to me. Especially, it's a place where I can actually interact with the outside world in a safer way. I mean, I say controversial things here, but I can talk very openly there about what's happening in Hollywood. I can name names, and more importantly, I can share sort of my journey and the experience that I've had, and the methods that I've learned. Like, I've got my Pasha method of storytelling, which, to some degree I learned from Ira and some large degree I learned myself, but it's what I've learned, and that's helped me sell scripts when I don't have a network. Even 20 years into this, I don't have a network. I've got an anti-network. A lot of people are like, oh, that guy, get rid of that guy. I still have that going on, right? And so the only thing that's allowed me to succeed is I keep selling stuff against all odds, right? And so the method that I've developed in storytelling seems to work. And so I put that out there, and so come join me on the Patreon. There's been a lot of interesting things. I've now got a bunch of Disney people who are on the Patreon who have an axe to grind against people inside of Disney who are now leaking all kinds of things to me, and I'm happy to grind that axe for them. So it's just become a very fun place that's evolved into something I didn't expect.
Yeah, you literally have your own Game of Thrones little birds running around.
We got all these little spies, and again, they have their own agendas. These are people that are inside of Disney, Lucasfilm, and other companies that are embittered by the same things we're embittered by. And finally, they said, maybe we can get some of this out there through this guy, right? And they have been, and they've been sending me information about what's really happening behind the scenes at a lot of these companies, which I didn't expect, and I've been posting them. So if you really want to find out some of the shocking things that are really happening behind the scenes in Hollywood, come join my Patreon.
Absolutely. And having been part of his Patreon for a long period of time, I will most definitely say it is completely worth it. If only for some of the hilarious stories that we get out of there from time to time.
Well, we just got our debt consolidated, so we might have a little extra coin we can send that way. But thank you again so much. It's been honestly, more ass kissing headed your way. It's really been cool getting to know you since I started watching you guys on Doomcock's channel, and you
had Doomcock and I together on here today. That was so much fun.
That is anyway. I'll cry about it later.
It speaks to the value of this channel. It speaks to his respect for everyone on here, my respect, and our friendship. So thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
I just want to throw one thing out there. I have a bunch more ideas on your Star Trek series, so hit me
So,
up.
all right, what I'll do is I'm going to put my personal email right now in the private chat. And
I'll link them over to it. It's all good. I've got it.
You got, Coraon knows me well, and so drop me a thing. Who knows? It maybe, God willing, once Mr. Kurtzman's The Flames sort of calm down, and maybe, because I do have a relationship with the Roddenberry company, I know them, right? Who knows? You may never know. In my journey, I get a phone call, just like I got that phone call. You want to develop Gene's thing, Spectre, and I didn't know what that came out of nowhere. And so who knows if one day I'll get a call. You got some ideas for Star Trek? I'm like, I actually do have an idea, and it was born here that I think maybe worth pursuing. So maybe we can continue chatting about it.
Yeah, I mean, I spent 9 years in serving in the U.S. Coast Guard, which at the time was arguably the closest thing to a real-life Starfleet, and a lot of that was inspiration that went into my book. So if there's an opportunity for me to get on a Star Trek project, I will pretty much do whatever it takes. Yeah, that's it right there.
All right, well, as I think Coraon can affirm, I try to be. I've got a big ego and all this other stuff, but I try to overcome that with being friendly and universal and opening opportunities for people. So, if God willing, I ever get a Star Trek show, I'm gonna make it a Star Trek show where interesting, intelligent fans and well-thought people like yourselves would actually have access to try to bring good ideas into it. That would be my goal. Not most people in Hollywood don't have that goal. So, but because I've become a member of this YouTube world, hopefully I've overcome that narcissism of the industry, that we're better than these people. That's behind all this nonsense of why they're not connecting with the fans. Because I'm just a fan like you guys are, and the very fact that we have impassioned discussion shows what fans can create.
Well, and you know what? I'll leave you on this note. We also got to remember that while we're passionate and we think our opinions are true, we're just as capable of writing garbage like they are. We are just as capable.
That's why you got me in my method.
Right, duh, of course. My bad.
Let you guys run the damn show. It'd be me, but whatever.
You know what? The Kamran Pasha series of Trek, where you're the showrunner, would probably be the highest bar of Trek in the last 20 years. So I think it'd be worth checking out.
I will try to vote. And I promise you, our brother Doomcock ain't going to be happy with it. And it's going to be this epic moment where Doomcock turns against me. Then I'll have to come on and listen to his rant on his channel while I defend myself for having sold out. But I look forward to that day.
Awesome. All right, my friend.
God bless everyone. Happy birthday, Coraon. Many blessings to you and to everyone here. And everyone, please hit the like, subscribe here, support these wonderful people. Because, it's this fan base that challenge Hollywood, as Coraon said at the beginning. What happened to Dungeons & Dragons, it's just the beginning, and so keep pushing it forward because you're forcing the industry to take you into account.
Yeah, and I mean we're willing to try to be more of the voice of reason and trying to bring people from all sides. I mean, we had Overlord DVD here. I will, if some new Trek fans or whatever want to try and be reasonable and come on here for respectful discourse, that's our goal with this channel, is to try and help bridge the gap and heal the divide, because
the debate is good.
It is,
and respect is good, and that's what we've lacked across the board in the last 10 years. We're going to change that. All right, everyone, please forgive me, I have to go. Blessings to all of you. Happy
just
birthday,
glad you showed up at all.
Everyone stay here. There's a lot more great conversation coming. Everyone's here, because when I leave is when H. Marie is going to start speaking and take over the entire channel.
That's correct.
And you're going to watch it. All right, guys. God bless everyone. Peace.
God bless. Take care.
All right, well, that's going to do us for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. No, I'm just kidding. We still have crap to discuss, but we have been. Honestly, Arende, the stars aligned well for this, because if you really want to think about it, the whole point of storytelling is just basically illusions. So everything's connected.
Better than that. There was the huge line in the book that I can't quote it exactly, so I'm going to paraphrase, but basically the Messiah Don says, we use the word faith because 5,000, 3,000, 2,000 years ago, they didn't really have a word for imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if this whole discussion isn't the antithesis of the book, which is imagine it, we took Gene Roddenberry's imagination and how much it infected our imaginations collectively, and then we literally came up with a new imagination in real time that we all wanted to contort to the rules of the worlds that we've all agreed exist. And that's the illusion. That's the big illusion that the book was pointing to, is that if you just all agree to be nice to each other when you get in the room, you can just jump right to the fun part, right to the imagination, right to the big goals, big picture. Even if your imagination is stocks and bonds, like setting a room where nobody's going to get yelled at or beaten with a stick, which as a person with anxiety, I still have a complete fear of. No matter what room I walk into, I think there's a possibility that somebody's holding a stick. And that makes it hard to talk, makes it hard to jump in, but obviously
Just this.
And this.
Everyone's got weapons now.
Well, see, and that I think is the exact example of what the internet has done for us. Here we are hosting people in our home, our site as it is, and to anybody that's like been debating on whether or not we're, good to have on a show or good hosts.
Yeah.
You just saw how we host people, but then also be like, that's global communication. If we can all just talk and share our feelings and nobody gets muted, nobody gets shunned out, but also everybody respects communication and lets one person speak at a time, then suddenly new ideas can be had with people that literally we just met. Like, for those of us following us, we have had Kamran on the Rogue Council, but this is the first time he's been on TWB.
Yeah.
And we introduced him to all of you all on our fans. And then also DVD
I think they already knew him, but yeah, keep going.
Like, we all just had him for the first time on our show.
Yeah.
And that turned into Mr. Cock is known for having fights, rants, raids, anger. And instead, when he showed up on our show, he was civil and had a respectful discourse, which goes to show that, like, setting that as the tone, the goal is restoring respect in the discourse, is enough to have respectful discourse if everybody respects that.
Well, and when I appeared on
the illusion we're creating is.
When I appeared on Doomcock's show, I certainly knew better than to try and outrant him in his own house.
My joke.
But, huh? Yeah.
Shout out to Skogliotin for getting my joke.
So I'll just go through real quick because we're gonna have to make this a shorter segment. Like I said, Coraon, I think we should just make this subject for Rogue Council this week.
We can talk about it, yeah.
Yeah, so my notable quotes were, the best way to avoid responsibility is to say, I've got responsibilities. Guilty.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a problem without a gift for you in its hands. You seek problems because you need their gifts. That one was quite a nugget to chew on. Like, man, so many just one-liners that I really had to pause the book and think about and really think on. Yeah. Argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they're yours. I guess I'll throw a little insider info. There have been nights on this show where I've been a little bit insecure about wanting to even continue because, who's watching and why should I do it? Now, this doesn't happen as often, and especially it's probably not going to happen again for a long time. But I had those times. I had those moments where it was like, I'm putting in all this effort and I'm trying to put on a quality show, and we're growing slowly, and it's like nobody gives a shit. And that's when I realized that we need to be our own biggest fans first, because this is the program that we put on. And when I started listening more to Coraon's perspective of, we will our realities into existence, we make our own reality, I can say for a certainty that I'm no longer arguing the limitations of the Writer Brothers ever again. Because look what just happened. I mean, Coraon, it's your birthday, and you gave me one of the biggest gifts you could have possibly given. You didn't have to. So,
well, you guys, I hate to say this, but you guys did it to me first. You guys gave me a family, and I appreciate that, and I feel it's only fair to share. Right.
Yeah, and I hope everyone in the chat, everyone watching, depending on how far you want to go with this journey, you get on board this train now. And we have a subscription. Josiah Clinch has subscribed. Thank you, Josiah. We appreciate your support. We really don't.
Congratulations. You're
And-
taking your first step into a wider world.
Exactly. And like I said, you guys that are here early, especially with the ones that show up, you guys stay in the chat, you guys correspond with us. We're not going to forget any single one of you. And if we do, just remind us and we'll say sorry and make it up to you. But definitely do our best.
I'm not going to keep that promise. I will forget all of you, but that's brain damage, not lack of care.
Oh, sure. No, sure. And then, of course, the best line in the entire book. Everything in this book may be wrong.
Well,
I want to contend one other line. Sorry to interrupt, Coraon. I know you have a really good thought. I thought the absolute best line was, if God asks you to suffer, do you choose yes?
That was a good one, too.
Everybody says you suffer exactly as he decides. And if God tells you to live a happy life, what do you do? Oh
yeah, and that was the other one that you mentioned that. Sorry, I just got inspired to point out the other thing that I really liked that he said that I totally just forgot. Continue.
Well, I was actually going to say, the lines where we're talking about suffering and problems and whatnot. In my, like when I do religious counseling and whatnot, one of the things that comes up all the time is, why do good things happen, or why do bad things happen to good people? And okay, I'm going to give a little bit of my perspective on that, because I feel this is one of the core concepts that a lot of people have trouble with, and I feel like it really relates to this book. We need suffering. We need adversaries. We need problems to deal with. Because there's a line in the Wiccan Read that goes, to learn, you must suffer. Okay? And I'm going to expand that. I tend to expand that out, that says nobody learns well when they're in a comfortable couch in a millionaire home, watching TV and sitting there drinking, scotch. We learn because there's a problem and we have to figure out how to solve it. And we don't have the opportunity to just throw money at the problem or what have you. We have to sit down and actually figure out how we're going to deal with the issue and resolve it. And why do bad things happen to good people? Because we're ready to deal with the next problem. We're ready to learn more. Because we're in that place where we are willing to accept the lessons the universe gives us. So, in a weird way, even when it sucks, be thankful that we're getting those problems. Because if we didn't get those problems, we wouldn't learn, we wouldn't grow, we wouldn't become what we're meant to be. Which is, in my opinion, no less than, guys like in the book who are, slowly becoming a divine being on their own. That, to me, is one of the big ones.
I love that.
Absolutely.
For me, it's something that I've struggled with, mostly because it doesn't seem to be like a universal obvious. But I've been studying logistics for the longest time. It's pretty much the core of all of my careers combined, all the jobs I've done combined. And in studying logistics, one of the things I've noticed that a lot of people don't do with their own lives is account for the critical control points that are failing at home. Right. And those are when it comes to struggling, sometimes we're struggling because we're not actually cleaning ourselves. And I've definitely been one of those people where I just forget to shower for 3-4 days in a row because I got stuck in a headspace for a while.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of what this book talked about were the critical control points you, the individual, at any now that you're walking in, can really focus on. Are you doing what you want to be? No. Why not? Well, because I need to make money. Okay. How can you get to make money the way you want to?
Yeah.
All these problems, they're not curses. They're not death sentences. When they say it's a gift looking in the mouth, as a QA, as a logistician, problems are ways to improve efficiency.
All
Ways
right.
to improve yourself.
All right, so we got to make way on this. We're not putting off DS9 again, so we're going to go ahead and quickly touch on the episode, and then we, of course, got our memorial segment, and that'll probably do it for this evening. So, real quick, Invasive Procedures from DS9. This is Season 2, Episode 4. A plasma storm is approaching the station, and almost all personnel have been evacuated. Only a skeleton crew remains. Suddenly, a distress call from a cargo ship comes in, and Cisco decides to respond. A tractor beam pulls it in, but it's no cargo ship at all. 2 Klingons, a Trill, and a female, overpower Odo and O'Brien, and then the rest of the crew. The Trill, Varad, is unjoined and seems very frustrated about that. He thinks his life is mediocre and wants Jadzia's symbiont. Bashir is forced to perform the operation that will mean her life will end soon. And I'll just segue right into my biggest problem with this whole episode, and the biggest plot hole of it all is Bashir's failure to uphold his Hippocratic oath. Because in this instance, when it's been informed that, if we take the symbiont out of Jadzia, she's dead. Okay, then you have a duty to murder Varad. Because if putting the symbiont in Varad is going to endanger Jadzia's life, you're just trading one life for another. And I'm sorry, but Jadzia's a more valuable person. Plus, if you kill Varad, what's his crew gonna do? Kill you? Not likely. They're probably gonna, just take their earnings and go away. But that's just my biggest gripe. Overall, the episode is kind of rapey. But that was just my takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, my piece on it has to do with Jadzia and Varad there. And the real question about, because to me what the Dax symbiont really is a collection of memories, right? And the idea of stealing somebody else's memories is a dark and really twisted thing, especially when you've put so much of your belief into the problems that you have is because you don't have somebody else's memories. In fact, one could even argue that this is a situation where, we have somebody who feels disadvantaged because they didn't get the advantage somebody else got. And now they want recompense for that. And if that isn't a timeless sort of scenario that we have seen played out in recent years, I really don't know what is, right? I do think that, to me, the good pieces of this episode are how much character building it really does for Bashir, believe it or not, because we really see him wrestle with this and then put into a situation where he feels he has no choices. And that's a hard place for him to be. So I do think that goes well. I think the character this episode was actually done the dirtiest to was poor Odo, who gets maybe 10 minutes of screen time the whole episode.
That was such a freaking... I mean, the whole episode was an interesting concept, but this is one of the cases where... Ooh, nice Romulan ale. This is one of the cases where the concept was more focused than the actual content of the story. There's story stuff that I've worked on. I've actually got a lot of different writing projects that haven't made it to the light of day. But one of the things that I've had to do in some of those other projects is completely walk away from a concept because it just doesn't work narratively speaking. And that's hard to do, especially when you get attached. But if you don't do it, you're gonna get episodes like this. And I mean, overall, this episode is weak because we take Odo and it's like, we got this concept, right? We're going to have Jadzia come, or we're going to have this Trill come, and he's going to take the symbiote, he's going to get it. Oh, crap, we have Odo, the shapeshifter, that can basically, shapeshift through just about anything, and let's just put him in a box. Yeah, there we go. Get him out of the episode early, and it felt like every single creative liberty to just make the plot happen in this instance was pushed. Real quick, let's catch up on some fan mail. Nemesis of Eden says, I remember this episode, some pretty gnarly subtext. Yeah, and I'll give him balls for going with the concept, but it's just the execution didn't stick the landing. Skoglioten writes in, seeing how much the symbiote changed Varad's personality, I find it implausible that it wouldn't affect hers at all at the end. Right, and we get a throwaway line with that. this never comes up again. So it's like, this is a skippable episode if you really think about it. And then Scoglie follows up, I understand that he was talking on, I'm sure not 7 personalities worth of information. Huh? Oh, taking on. Thank you. Yeah, that's a little hard to read sometimes. Personalities worth of information where she took one extra. I would still expect it to have an effect. Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. That I think is like I think this episode sucked from the jump, mostly because like honestly, to me this is Ray round 2, or I guess technically round 0.
Okay.
Proto Ray.
Well,
no, because like
that name sounds cool. We're not using it.
No, so Varad is like I should have been the one with the Force. I tried. I went to the council. I trained my ass off. I should have the Force as, she does. And in this universe, the Force is a symbiote named Dax. And
that's a
Varad
really good
takes on
analogy.
the
I'm
symbiote.
impressed, dude.
Varad takes on the symbiote and suddenly realizes this is just a brain pair. I get all of his memories, reflexes, muscle memories, all of that information. I could have lived my life. There's a reason they didn't pick me, and it's probably my sociopathy, because now Dax is talking to him, so he literally can hear Dax diagnosing the reason why Dax was never entered into him, because Dax is also a living entity full of memories, like the Force. And Dax is literally downloading, uploading, and then simultaneously updating Varad. And I think that's where the one-liner actually can be excused. Like, I didn't like this episode at all, but the one-liner makes sense because what's her name? Jadzia trained her entire life to quiet her own brains, to accept new thoughts, and then remember where hers belong along with it. Like, that's the Jedi part of the Jedi that Rey never got, was there is so much aloneness, so much mental taking care of, especially as you get more power, especially if you came from loneliness and now you get power. That's like one of the fastest ways to the dark side. So for Rey to just jump and go, what Rey became, that's Varad. Varad went to the dark side because he chased the power as hard as he could, became so lonely that it was his only goal in life to hire people to help him steal the thing that would give him power. And then he gets it, and what does he do with it? Well, the power talks back.
So I do want to say that I'm going to come out and say it, John, because I think looking back now and where DS9 has aged, I think this episode is actually worse than Run Along Home.
I will say
I think
an easy one to fix.
Well, and okay, we'll get to that.
In terms of the game mechanics it knew anything about, and the game theory it
honestly,
knew anything about, but
yeah, we mentioned the Enterprise theme song, which I first time I've actually met another Star Trek fan that still hates it to this day, which, hey, good for you, Overlord DVD. But I think that's what Run Along Home is going to be. I think you might actually be right in that in time, Run Along Home will be that stupid, silly, campy episode that you just kind of watch and analyze for fun. This episode, I'm skipping on subsequent rewatches. I don't like it. It's stupid. It's just not very good. But, Coraon, you have a quick hot fix, so let's see if that changes my mind.
Hot fix to make this episode not suck. Really, really easy. Bajor has built a new colony. Dax, Odo, Bashir, and let's pick one other crew member. Let's say Quark.
Sure.
Okay? Are going down to help set up the colony. Okay? That's where the whole thing goes down. So the reason why Odo is incapable of being particularly effective until a set amount of time, because let's be honest, Odo would, eat this episode pretty quick.
Like I said it in this,
Yeah. is that he has too much ground to cover. He literally cannot be where this guy is in time because he doesn't have the terrain, he doesn't have the access, he doesn't have the tools. So we effectively take him out by making him so out of his element that he can't function the way he needs to function to catch this guy. Okay? 2, we then get the option to set it so that, like, for example, he's in a moving vehicle for most of this. This is like happening in an RV or whatever, traveling away from the settlement. So there's no way for anyone to get there to assist them. And it comes down to Quark, Odo, and yeah, we could even throw in Sisko because Sisko and Dax have that close relationship. So yeah, we have Sisko there as well. Sisko's the other hostage. But we take them off the station to do this episode.
The emissary has to bless the colony.
Right, there we go. So we're all fish out of water here, and we don't take our location and make it work. We take a different location, and we don't have the resources to resolve the problem any other way than by Sisko being, like appealing to, for lack of a better term, the Dax symbiote's humanity to get this whole thing turned around.
Yeah, you leave. I say you leave Odo on the ship, and it's more of an exploration to how Odo has evolved his abilities into his command style.
Yeah, there we go.
So he has to be fluid like he is as a species on the battlefield, and we see where his hiccups are while all the other things you just said are transpiring.
Yeah.
Because like the emissary part, I think, is actually like the trick to get it away, like who triggered the colony. Like that even makes the main bad guy even more malicious. Like he took the time to earn money, create a colony on a foreign planet that only Dax would be called to.
Yep.
Right? Like that to me, I guess, packs it up. But even then, it's still, I don't know. It's
and it
like
makes the bad guy
for the limitless drug in the universe where everybody already has the access to the limitless drug on the freaking creating device.
That makes the tragedy of this guy, of Yedrin, even worse.
Yeah.
Because he had everything. He had the life he wanted, but he couldn't see it.
That would be the best, dude. This guy's parading them around during his council thing, and he's still looking for the fountain of youth.
Yeah. He literally has everything, but he can't see it because he's so obsessed with getting the Dax symbiote. Because in his mind, because in his mind, that's the only thing that mattered. And having those conversations that in that direction, and Dax being able to get a part of that would add to everybody's character development. Because now Dax doesn't just see it as we could make it so that Dax doesn't just see this as, her responsibility that she earned and whatnot, but that it's almost a sacred trust, right? That how much of her life is actually valued.
Yeah, and we could really get a solid parallel between the orthodox, you will become a part of the symbiosis family versus whatever Jadzia was raised in. And it may be similar in language, but different in execution in the way that they tell their stories. Like, oh yeah, my mom used to always tell me that this is how I get symbiosis. But she also used to tell me that it's okay not to. And that's what set Jadzia apart, was her family life led her to have a different relationship with the symbiote. And that's what I feel like this episode was really missing, was that Jadzia was most likely written as a character who was chosen for her mental stability and her devotion to self improvement, whereas Varad was this arrogant, I'm doing this because I was raised to do this, because my whole life was pointed to do this, and so I got all of this money to make it so that I could just buy my way into this, because the first attempts didn't work. And we could see that. We could see him progress. But instead we just got, I'm a whiny guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a textbook example of even the best Star Treks have missteps. But at the end of the day, we even just sat down and fixed it within a few minutes, right? I mean, these can all be dealt with. And would we necessarily have been able to pull off something perfect? Well, I mean, that depends a lot on, how the actors and the director interacts with what is written. But, we can definitely see opportunities come forward that we could move forward with. And I think that's part of also the restoring respect into discourse, because we're having those conversations from a place of, hey, this was crap, fix it kind of thing, from a, this is what we would have done differently. And, we're trying to build up.
And that's going to be our goal with Star Trek Picard. Of course, I'll have to, for the first time in months since Strange Unoriginal Ideas, bust the dust off the what we did like and what we didn't like categories.
Wait a minute. We're actually going to do this? We're actually going to watch it?
I thought that was what... Okay. Yes, we are. I'm sorry. Did you need more time to mentally prepare for it?
I might need more booze to mentally prepare for it. But...
Well, you got plenty of time. It's not coming until the 16th, and we might discuss the trailer after if we get done with this next segment. Okay. For those of you that are new here, and for those, of course, who have followed us since the beginning, how we treat death is just as important as how we treat life. I am so sick of having to say that every few weeks, but such is reality. And, well, we certainly had a string of losses in pop culture, unfortunately. And, Coraon, why don't you go ahead and start with Lisa Loring and go for it.
Sure. So Lisa Loring, unfortunately passed this week. Her biggest claim to fame is she was the very original Wednesday Addams on the black and white, The Addams Family. She was 6 years old when she actually started on that. And, she was originally from the Marshall Islands, which are pretty much out in the middle of nowhere. She didn't do too much after The Addams Family. She basically stayed pretty out of the limelight, right? She was married. She had some interesting partners over the years, I guess is the best way to put it. I do recommend taking a look, because most of her background and married life would probably get us booted off of YouTube. So it is worth checking out. She lived a very colorful life. She did get, she was on the convention circuit for quite a while. And, I never personally got to talk to her, but while doing research for this, I did find out that there were a few people that met her on the convention circuit and commented that she lived up to what an adult Wednesday Addams you'd think would almost be: a little bit kooky, a little bit strange, but very level-headed and have a very decent sense of love and family. So,
yeah, Galenda writes in, says, Cindy Williams gave me my favorite patronizing nickname. I've called so many people Boo Boo Kitty.
Yeah, that's the next one we've got here is Cindy Williams.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say Cindy Williams. She also passed. For those who are unaware, she was Shirley of Laverne and Shirley fame. There isn't a film or television show from the 70s, for basically the entire 70s, that she wasn't a part of in some way. Okay. We're literally talking about things like American Graffiti, which I would argue is probably one of the most critical things to have come along and really set the stage for a lot of things. Like, we wouldn't have Star Wars without American Graffiti. Okay. She was, of course, Laverne and Shirley, Hawaii Five-0, Chips, Police Story, Saturday Night Live. Just you name it, she was part of it and got it spinning to the point where if you looked up female comedian actress that was classy, she's the first one on the list. And she really set that tone for classy comedic actresses. If you liked things like the actresses on Cheers and Night Court. You know, all of those, you ask them where they got inspired from, they'll tell you it was Laverne and Shirley, right? The modern sitcom, you know, yes, Laverne and, you know, they kind of perfected it from the Lucille Ball era. And in fact, her and Lucille Ball did have a connection. They were working it with Desilu at the time. So you could even argue that she had a little bit of a hand in the start of Star Trek as well. So, you know, this is one of those top tier talents that really got the ball rolling on modern pop culture.
Yeah. And of course, that brings us to the youngest and definitely gone too soon, and that is, of course, Mrs. Annie Wersching. I was familiar with her work in 24, and also she also appeared in an episode of Enterprise. But also, notably more recently, she was the Borg Queen in Picard Season 2, which I didn't bother with Season 2, though. I'm probably still not gonna bother. And most recently, she also appeared in The Last of Us. And the reason I mention that is because she got a cancer diagnosis back in 2020.
Last of Us 2013, the video game, not the show.
Oh, okay, that would explain the confusion then. Okay, thank you for the clarification. I was going to say that was a little okay. Then that thank you. Thank you for the correct information. Well, the thing is though is even after 2020, I mean, she still showed up to work and did her job as the Borg Queen while battling cancer. And regardless of the product, that is just commendable. That is true dedication to the craft, and I absolutely, you know, I have respect for people like that. Not that it's a requirement. If you get cancer and you decide you're done, I don't blame you.
I encourage you to decide you're done.
I mean, I encourage you to do what you feel is right.
Cancer is mostly stress-based. If you can decide that you're done, take the time to heal and be better.
Yeah, but at the same time,
but if you don't think you're going to win and you want to go the test route, that's what heroes do. Nobody should have to be a hero if they have cancer, but Tessa,
I agree.
We're 100% a hero. Not Tessa, Annie Wersching. Sorry, shouting out her character
name.
I just ran through her whole IMDb, and damn, from voice acting in video games to television characters, she was the Borg Queen while simultaneously a doctor, while simultaneously a detective, while simultaneously like.
Yeah, I guess what I would say to anybody who has a terminal diagnosis, do what you love with what time you've got. And it's clear that she loved acting. And she loved being on set, and she loved doing this job. And I personally think that that is fantastic and wonderful of her to choose to do.
Yeah. And, it hits hard because she has 3 children, and she passed at 45, and that's 2 years, younger than our mother. And so this one does strike a more personal chord in that I can unfortunately relate to what her family is going through, just from my own personal perspective. And yeah, to have such talent, taken away so soon. I mean, it's sad for the pop culture community, but it's also sad for her family. And I mean, it's so same with these other people that are sharing the memorial spotlight on our show tonight. However, thanks for giving us what you guys did when you were here. Thanks for sharing small pieces of your life and bringing characters to life. And
thank you for building the culture that all of us kind of got our going on here. We wouldn't be here discussing nerdy topics without you guys creating a nerdy culture, and we really appreciate that. And
absolutely,
that's why we honor you guys.
Absolutely. So, with that, we continue forward, and Well,
We're gonna do this, huh?
why don't we get H. Marie's thoughts, since she's been so respectful all night. And just listening and enjoying our conversation and reacting to it and being a live reaction on screen. I do appreciate it. But why don't you go ahead and give us your first initial thoughts on the latest Season 3 Picard trailer?
I really don't want to get my hopes up. I was watching and I was like, okay, I really want this to be good. Please be good. Please be good. Please don't be a disappointment. I love Star Trek. I grew up watching Next Gen with my dad, so being able to see the Next Generation crew all in one show, I really want it to be good, but its track record is not very great. So I'm just like, It premieres, it premieres the day after my birthday, so I'm like, well, my birthday's shitty, then I don't have to worry about the next day being shitty, because then if that show comes out, then it is what it is. But...
Yes! I love you so much. Oh my god.
It wouldn't be the first time I've had a disappointment for my birthday, so...
You hear that, Petey? The bar is so low, you have nowhere to go but up.
So
fair.
So I'm definitely in the brig. If I don't, I could just bring like a piece of chocolate, and that's probably going to be better than Picard. But I guess we'll find out.
Chocolate is chocolate, you know this. But yeah, no, I really don't want it to suck. We watched the trailer a couple of times because Parker's obviously excited. He's not.
Yeah. Okay. My tweet has been misunderstood. I got excited at the end because he said the thing. He did the thing. He's sitting in the captain's chair. He said engage. All right, that's iconic. But I have no expectations. I'm pretending this is season 1. I'm going in with 0. Granted, that didn't help me with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but I'm not holding out any hope at all. I don't expect that. If it's just a whole season of fan service and the plot is okay, pass. That's all I want. We don't need deconstruction of characters. We've already tried that. It failed. Let's forget that and move on. If it's just, the TNG movies in a season, again, I've rewatched them fairly recently. I can live with that. It's a step in the right direction. And that's my focus on it all, is making steps to get better products. Because at this point, I'm sorry, guys, we are 5 Star Trek series deep now. 5 series active. Okay? People said that it was going to fail after Discovery because Discovery was so bad. It didn't. Discovery got an audience, now has 5 seasons. People thought that Picard was going to be bad because season 1 was so awful. I didn't even bother with season 2. Now we're about to watch season 3, but that's because we do objective reviews on this show as well, so it's a little bit of a different perspective. I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt, I'm just giving them a chance. Strange New Worlds had some decent moments, and people like Prodigy, and for whatever reason, some people like Lower Decks, although I'll admit, season 3 did have some of the moments. But go ahead, Coraon, looks like you have a thought.
I have several thoughts.
Okay, can I quickly do fan mail then?
Yeah, do
All
it.
right, quickly. Skogliotin says, I'm with you, Marie. The memories of TNG go deep. I wanted so badly for the show to be good. I feel like I'm going in completely shell-shocked. With you there, man. And Skogliotin says, season 2 was way worse than season 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's start with they're dragging out the Stargazer again. Or given the crew that's going to be on this ship, I'm going to call it the Stargazer. Now,
it's the Titan, more like the retired Titan.
Yeah, the old Titan, I guess, or the retirement castle Titan.
Can't say Stallone.
Titan. Yes,
Stallone's definitely not a good comparison, but yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
the Stargazer, I like it.
The Stargazer.
So does Glinda.
Yeah. So first we've got. So let's math this out a little bit here. We've got Picard, who's an admiral, by the... Well, I mean, was an admiral at the very least. We have Riker, who's an admiral.
Captain.
Or was he captain? I thought he had finally gotten up there.
He retired
least,
at some point, and he still retains his rank as captain.
Apparently, magically. Worf is supposed to be an ambassador at this point. There are so many, like, the command structure of this ship, to say is screwed up would be beyond an understatement. These people should not be on the same ship together for anything other than commissioning something or being trot out as old war horses for some sort of diplomatic event. Anything else makes zero sense. There's supposed to be one old man on the ship, not the ship of old men. Okay? So we have that. They're bringing in bad guys we've seen before, and they're bringing in lore for some reason. Because, we had to get Brett Spiner back on, and this was the only option, apparently. That
obviously.
Right? This is... Okay. And then the thing that threw me over the edge where I flipped tables and walked out of the room was Worf saying he's embraced pacifism. Like, does Kurtzman... No, hold on. Does Kurtzman even know what that means? Like, I would buy him the dictionary if I thought he would use it. Right? Oh.
Okay. This line has been misunderstood since it came out. Like, I get it. I understand why it's probably not delivered the best, but what Worf says is he tends to prefer pacifism over combat. And I think that makes sense because he's always been the honorable Klingon. That doesn't mean that he's not going to fight. That doesn't mean he doesn't want to kick someone's ass. In this trailer, he's kicking Raffi's ass, which was awesome. I'm looking forward to that now. He's an older man. He's an older, wiser man. Look, John brought up Star Wars, using Star Wars as an analogy. What do the Jedi ultimately try to become? They try to become the stoic, passive warrior. They're not afraid to bust out the lightsaber and dice you into a million pieces when the time comes, but their goal primarily is pacifism. Worf is a Federation Klingon. He grew up with Federation ideals. He has those ideals instilled. So while he's still a Klingon warrior, he wants to be that I would prefer to seek out diplomacy, like Starfleet taught me, than hack somebody into pieces. But we also see him beating up Raffi, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. But then again, we said not to worry about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and look at that.
Right. So, hear me out on this then.
Okay.
Because now I do apologize to poor John here because I do need to pull in spoilers from Deep Space Nine. So, plug your ears or something to hear me out.
That's where the brain damage comes in handy.
Okay, fine. I need to do it to make my point, though. Okay? I have to bring up Kor, King, and Koloth. Okay? I have to bring up Kimpek. Okay? Who, by the time we see him in Next Gen, is an old man. Okay? And I have to bring up literally every old-ass Klingon we run into. Every single one of them has gotten more obsessed with getting the jobs done before they die than anything else. Okay? Hell, on top of that, he has become Worf is an ambassador to the Klingons. Okay? He has spent a significant amount of time with Martok at this point. He has spent more time with his people and are going to be adapting back into the Klingon fold. To me, that says he's too busy dealing with all the people he needs to go get vengeance on to be sitting around in a diplomatic office trying to bring peace to everybody. He's not bringing peace. He's settling old scores so he can die and go to Sto-vo-kor with a clean damn slate. Okay?
Yeah, hold on, John. I'm going to ask the question. How many of those noble Klingon warriors that you listed off served on the flagship of the Federation and then subsequently on the best space station under two captains that were very staunch about upholding Federation ideals?
So Worf served on a Klingon warship.
He did?
spent significant amount of time with Klingons.
Yeah.
Worf was involved in every single major political moving and shaking that we see in Klingon history for that time period. The only thing we don't see Worf do more or less is beat the other houses into submission, which he had his brother for. So to me, it says that, even in Next Gen, when he uses the word peacemaker, he says the word, but it doesn't seem to fit in his mouth. Like it's a foreign like an alien concept. So to me, this doesn't track. This is a significant departure that he would choose to use his words other than his fists.
Well,
I guess we're going to have to see how it plays out.
I have a couple really great points to jump onto that, because I think you're right, Coraon, but also I think Parker's right, but also I think it goes to show where the style of the writing's going. But first, I want to shout out Donnie Pearson. Welcome for your first viewing. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you.
Hey, Donnie.
Yeah, it is Coraon's birthday. Happy birthday, Coraon. Donnie, happy birthday to you. You just found the greatest channel of your life. Welcome.
Now we're
so,
all right.
Coraon, what I think you're really getting to is the writer's inability to pay attention to verbiage. I think Parker is also right in the sense that, like, Worf is much more Sun Tzu than he is Genghis Khan in terms of generals. In that, I don't think Worf would have ever used the word "I prefer pacifism," and instead he would have said something along the lines of, "I prefer aggressive politics.
Yeah,
I prefer to fight them with words into submission." Like,
if he had said that,
like
the diplomatic table is his battlefield, I'm down, right?
And not to, like, even if he had just said that, like, I like in the trailer he says, I prefer aggressive politics.
Yeah, real quick,
go, okay,
Donnie.
That's a dumb thing to say in the trailer, but then throughout the whole season, all we see is Worf just mind battling every Klingon that
real
walks
quick.
into his office. You're like,
real quick,
yeah.
Welcome Donnie Pearson, and thank you for the subscription. We do appreciate y'all's support. You guys are awesome. So I think there's something an old friend of mine was saying. I think it's that people are reading too much into that line. And I think at this point, we've obviously made our cases, and we're just going to have to see how it plays out. Go ahead, H. Marie.
I just realized, I'm sitting here thinking you guys are talking about Worf. Worf was one of my favorite characters when I watched Next Gen and DS9. And yeah, he's never been a super violent one. He's always tried to be a little more on the reserved side for a Klingon because he was raised by human parents. But yeah, he's going to want to lean a little more, pacifist, because people don't like always fighting, even though he is Klingon and does very much believe in his Klingon beliefs. But oh, there goes my train of thought. Yep, that's been one of those days today. No, it's just I like him. He's a good character. I'm very interested to see where they decide to take a more pacifist version of Worf, if that's even where they're actually going to go, or if they just threw that line in there for people to sit here and debate like we are. We don't actually know what their intent was behind the line until we see the show.
But
like, I can hope that the line was because he was making fun of somebody, but
yeah, exactly. If the trailer sparks this much debate on such a nuanced piece of dialogue, and then the rest of the show, every episode does the same thing, finally, we're back to Star Trek. Because that's what Star Trek always did, was make you want to debate the nuances of lines and who delivered them, rather than debate the nuance of, is this even worth watching compared to everything else I've got available to me? Like, that's what Strange New Worlds, that's what Picard Season 1 and 2, that's what Discovery really are, is I could find 15 other shows that go way more into depth about the socio-cultural dilemmas of space and alien interaction. Should I stay here? And they all meant no. But like what we love Star Trek about was because it got into the nuanced debates about sociocultural interaction. And that to me, I feel like is what this trailer just did. But at the same time, like if the show just tries to constantly spark, well, is this an idea that matters to the show? That's not good. But if it's like, oh no, he said pacifist in this trailer, and then it turns out 3 episodes into the series that when he read that line, what he was doing was making fun of somebody because somebody called him a pacifist recently, and he just got done killing 10 people and said, no, I prefer pacifism. And that's a funny joke. That's a great line.
Yeah, I mean, if like I said, if it's taken out of context, okay, here's what I'm going to say.
I want it to be out of context.
I want it to be out of context, but here's my problem. One, I don't believe the people working on Star Trek are that clever anymore. And that's just from new Trek experience so far. And 2, we have literally seen what, like, for some weird reason, somebody in the writers' room...
All right. We're done. We're out. Sorry. I'm sorry to cut it off. We're almost done. But I wanted to address Donnie Pearson. You said, yeah, he says... number one, I'm assuming it's a dude, I guess. Number one show is Prodigy, and I want you to know that we are not here to tell anybody how to think. We are here to share our ideas, why we dislike and like something, why we think it's important, and we are here to listen to your ideas and why you like to hear stuff. We do like hearing. We try to keep correspondence up in the chat as much as we can. But we are just a 2-hour program, and so we are out of time. So I wanted to say thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. Thank you to Doomcock and Kamran Pasha for coming on to our show. And thank you guys so much. I know we didn't get all the way through the comments. We kind of had to change things up, having the panel a little stacked. That's going to happen from time to time. But just know, we read them. We try our best to read them and keep up with them. Like, your words aren't going into the ether unnoticed yet. So shout out to Nemesis of Eden, Skogli Jotun, Arende, great job with the book. We will follow up again on the Rogue Council this week. Galinda, thank you for being here. Zachariah, I saw you pop in earlier, didn't get a chance to say anything. Thank you for stopping by. And scrolling down, Orville Nation, thank you so much. Maria with T and Telly, thank you all guys for your continued support. You guys, I mean, we're our own biggest fans, but we also appreciate your enthusiasm. I'm Peter York with the Writer Brothers. I'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
This has been a presentation of the Writer Brothers Tuesday Night Live Show. The Writer Brothers, restoring respect into Discord.